Hi, welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So today I am making altered playing cards and I'm making them for a junk journal. I have attempted altered playing cards in the past using the jelly plate, but putting them directly on the jelly plate, they didn't pick up the paint in the way that I expected. So I have steered away from them for a very long time. However, I was very happy with these ones that I made today. So I went for just really using collage with different papers on them. That is wrapping paper that I'm using just now. I had a big clear out this morning of all the kind of stuff that's for the junk journals. And do you know that way when you go shopping in your own supplies? Well, that's what happened to me. I was like, oh, look at that. And that is, now I think it's rice paper that's at the bottom. That was a purchase from AliExpress. You know when you think you're buying something and then it comes and it's tiny, it fits in the palm of your hand. But you know what? They're lovely and they looked lovely. They were wrapped in a little string, so I was happy with them. And they were cheap at the end of the day. And this is an old fragile book page. The sort of page that, you know, you ever so slightly dent it and it just cracks in half. So these cards actually weren't glossy at all to begin with. I'd bought them on holiday in Turkey on the resort site. So they were just, they're basically cardboard. Like cartridge paper, that's what they feel like. They're slightly narrower than ATCs. So they're 3.5 inches tall and I think they're about 2 inches wide rather than the 2.5 that's required. So I thought these actually fit into coin envelopes and I was going to make something using the cards and the coin envelopes together. However, standard playing card sizes wouldn't fit into the coin envelopes. So I thought that lovely idea, but it's not one that, you know, it's not a standard, so it would only work with these narrower playing cards. Anyway, I'm off at a tangent. That is music paper I got from Kerry Griffiths in my Happy Mail. I use a few of his stuff actually on this, so I was quite pleased. So the approach I'm taking is I'm putting down a layer, you know, of torn papers or tissue papers on the number side of the card. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just embellish each card, you know, with little washi stickers and little pictures. We'll come to that. And then the back, I back it with just one piece of vintage style paper. Some of them are vintage and some of them are faux vintage. I have dog hairs everywhere. We have a black Labrador and a white and brown Jack Russell. So, you know, there's nothing you can put in place in the house to minimise the look of those dog hairs. They come in all colours. So that was just actually a jelly print on tissue paper. And this is a book page and I'm trying to get that little cracked deep brown edge in. Because out of all the book paper, that's the nicest bit, so I don't want to lose that. So I think I do 8 or 9 at the start as the, you know, for this first layer of torn paper. I'm using matte medium to put the papers on with. Oh, and napkins. I use napkins as well. I forgot about that. I'm using matte medium to put all these on. That is a beautiful napkin. That's from the supermarket. I think it's my favourite one. But for the ones that I embellish and then back, you know what, that I bring to completion, I choose 5 of them. My 5 favourite ones. This is ledger paper from the 1800s that Kerry gave me. The late 1800s, I think. I definitely seen those dates on it. So these days I do a lot more work with the jelly plate and with paints, but I still really like doing the junk journals as well because I find them very relaxing to do. And I find that when I am feeling a wee bit, the ideas aren't coming, or when I've done a big painting that I'm really proud of. I've done one for PM Artist Studio Video Hop that's on Saturday the 22nd, I think. Anyway, so I like changing the sort of genre that I'm working with, and I find the junk journals, because you're more likely to use papers that somebody else has decorated, and really it's probably it's more about the placement of those papers and about making them work together. It's almost about building, although you're tearing up lots of different papers and putting them together, you're not making something that's abstract. You're making something that actually looks really decorated. And I just love that. And a lot of it as well is it's to do with the textures of the paper. It's to do with the transparencies. It's to do with, the thickness of the paper. There's lots and lots of things that come into play with it. There's also the ones, obviously there's a lot of modern papers and they put the kind of vintage designs on to make them look like they're old. And then you actually have the older ones as well. So, there's a lot of artistry involved in it because of your paper choices, and you're having to also think about papers that go together. Like that quote at the bottom, Curiouser and Curiouser, that is wrapping paper with book quotes on it, and it's actually, overall, out of all the papers that I've used here, it is one of the thicker pages, but it's also opaque, but whereas this paper here is very thin, so you're going to see what's underneath. It also, like the torn edge, the paper's so thin, and the torn edge you don't feel the ridge of it. So all that just adds to how it feels, how it looks. So when you go to put ink on, you could have one paper with a torn edge, the other paper with a torn edge, but the ink will go on completely different because of the way the edge is. So it makes you think a bit differently than doing the painting, and I think that a lot of what I learned through the junk journals has actually helped me with the way that I approach doing the painting. And that's my rambling thought for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense. It makes sense to me. I'm not sure what sort of paper this is. I think it's like a handmade paper. Again, these little unusual papers are from AliExpress. That wrapping paper is old. I mean, I think that wrapping paper's maybe more than 20 years old. So this is the last one. And what I do is you need to let these dry. So I left these to dry for maybe 90 minutes because when we go to rip them off, the edges of the paper off, we want it to be dry so that we get that kind of worn look, as if the papers have been worn away at the edges rather than cut or deliberately torn. Although some of mine did look deliberately torn. But that's okay. So yes, I seen this on Camellia Craft Designs. She let hers dry completely, and then what she did was she was tearing the papers from the edge inwards, so that I suppose there isn't a sort of ridge that forms between the top paper and the card. Like, see, I'm trying to pull that paper in the way so that... Alright, I pulled a bit much off there. I think I pulled a bit of the card off there the way I did it. It's a bit easier with the thinner papers than it is with, like, the wrapping paper. There is one that I show you that's a lot better. There, see the way there? So some of it's actually, you've got little bits that are overhanging the edge, which you could sand off if you wanted, or use like a bone folder at the edge or whatever to smooth them down. But I liked some of them hanging over and some of them not reaching the edge at all. So 15 I ended up doing. I didn't do 15 on camera, but I'm only decorating 5 of them. So this is a lot of my junk journal stickers and bits and bobs. Now, a lot of this came from AliExpress. And then I've got 2 washi sticker books. So they're full pages of like washi tape. It's not a tape, it's a page. And then they've got the designs on them. So you have to tear or cut them out. I generally like to tear them because I like the torn edge and I find it easier to blend it into the background. That was a vellum book. And that's a Ted Baker toiletry box that I got a gift set in for Christmas, but it's got a lovely design inside. And all the pouches that I had the labels and the stickers and that in, I made all them from book pages and tissue paper and masking tape. They were really easy. There is a video for them as well if you're interested, but honestly they were just really simple. So that was off that washi book page, we'll call it, and it's just some flowers. Now you can see the white still shows a little bit round the edges, but it does blend in pretty well, to be honest. Now I could have done with maybe using a more opaque picture on some of these because the card still shows through, which is fine, but that's quite a busy picture, so it would have been better on a plainer background, but I really like it anyway. And these are just for fun, and a lot of it's actually, see the stamping and putting the ink around the edges and the way that you layer down the papers, a lot of that actually is more what makes it look good rather than what you're actually putting on it, I find. That's my opinion. So I was telling you that I'd been watching Camellia Craft Designs. I've watched her for over a year now anyway, and I love watching her because she reminds me of the Art Whisperer with the relaxation. She's completely different because she's so funny, and she talks about Gertrude, who is her Alexa, that I'm not supposed to say out loud because in case it sets people's Alexas off. But she's very down to earth, she's very funny, but she makes some beautiful junk journal items. Honestly, they're really nice. So definitely worth a watch, and I will link her in my description. So I'm giving her credit for the way I tore the papers. So I like doing the stamping off the sides on these smaller cards because it just looks like it's a small part of a bigger scene. And, oh, is it Artemis she's called? Oh, I can't believe I used to watch her, like, all the time. I'm sure it's Artemis, that's terrible. Anyway, she does that, and I really like that. That's another, most of what I use here is out of those washi pages because it's, well, I've just found them, so it was quite exciting using these different things. But see the way the ink goes round the outside? I just really like that. And it was so easy to achieve with those torn papers. The secret's in the drying time, letting them dry properly. I'm not very good at things like that generally. So that is a quote from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. So I've put in the bottle of, you know, the drink me, eat me scene. And then I put a butterfly underneath the bottle so that it's like a little specimen jar. I don't know, I feel like that was maybe a bit of a sad thing to do, to be honest. Poor wee butterfly. But because the bottle, the washi picture thing is transparent, you do see the butterfly through it, but it still looks like it's a kind of cloudy glass. So that actually worked really well. So I'll be looking out for more glass objects in my washi page books. And then I do another wee butterfly that's all sad that his friends cut up inside. This is a sad picture. But it does fit in well with the junk journal theme because specimens and the kind of, you know, that Victorian Edwardian era of medicine and science. It's it's a big theme for junk journals. I love this little blue butterfly. I love the shade of the blue. Some of the other blues are quite kind of childlike colours, but I felt this one was a bit more realistic, I suppose. I think this is my favourite one out of them all, actually, because of the thought process behind it. And I think the blue and the orange butterflies obviously complement each other really well. So now again, this is another thing from AliExpress. I bought what I thought was lots of pictures of, ladies from the 18th, 19th centuries, the early 20th century. But actually, they came out, they were all vertical strips. So, but it's fine. They're like washi tape as well, though, the way they're made. And that is more of the wrapping paper that I'd actually pulled off the side of one of the cards because it's still got a bit of brown book page as well. And I'm just moulding it round her face. You'll see it when I put it back down. It kind of frames her face and it makes her face the focal point. And I've just went to the glue stick from the matte medium because the glue stick dries a lot faster. And I don't mind that the ladies are in vertical strips because at the end of the day, we do a lot of paper layering with torn edges. So they're still very useful and they were very cheap. My acrylic block is a disgrace because I put my small jelly plates on it, the wee tiny ones that you use for card making, even though I don't make cards. So it's not in the best of conditions, but it still works. So this is the last one, and that's more stuff from AliExpress. They're just like copies of old vintage letters, I suppose, or ones that they've actually designed themselves. And it's really the paper they're on is just like printer paper, but they work absolutely fine. I like to have the blend of the old and the new. I'm stamping before I put that down so that, it adds to the sort of depth of the layers because, it looks like, well, the stamp has been put down, then this has maybe been added on as an extra rather than it just been stamped over the whole thing. You've got to think quite strategically when you do junk journals. So I just add a little specimen stamp of a butterfly in the bottom left hand corner, and that's that one done. And then the next step is we're going to back the cards. I'm building a junk journal from scratch. I'm just building it slowly. I've done the cover. I've decorated 5 random envelopes. I've made 5 altar playing cards, and I just want to keep going and making little pieces for it and then put it all together at the end. So that's the front of the 5 cards. They're lovely. I really like them. And then we're just backing them with different papers, and these are just one solid paper so that you could maybe put some gesso on top of this and then you can use it to write on. You could write on it as it is, but it does differentiate. There's a back and a front on the card. Although it's entirely up to you. You could do both sides with just one sheet or both sides with lots of decoration. This is just how I'm choosing to do it. I've also chosen papers that are very thin, so they aren't particularly bulky at all, even though there's a few layers on them. So this is it, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you soon, and thanks very much for watching, and take care. This is the backs. See you soon, bye.